Hello and welcome back to another GC360 Tuesday Bobcat Experience. I'm Frankie Mastras.
And I'm Caroline Hearn. We have a packed show for you today. First off, Kat is going to bring you our weekly political panel.
Herndon is going to let you in on sports with a buzzer beater that brought the house down.
Gabby is going to bring you your 3-day forecast, and Frankie and I are going to let you in on the newest national security threat.
Let's jump right into it. Let's toss it right over to Kat for our political panel.
Thanks, Frankie. I'm Kat Capstick, and we're delighted to have four distinguished guests to talk about the week in politics. Quentin T. Howell is chairman of the Baldwin County Democratic Party. Jahan El-Jabaghi is an assistant professor of business law at Georgia College. Madeline Ballantyne is a Georgia College student and president of the Young Americans for Liberty. And Andrew Strickland is a former Baldwin County Republican Party chairman. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
It's been an exciting week in politics, but it feels like every week recently has been. One big story developing is that Bernie Sanders is the apparent frontrunner for the Democratic Party. He's pretty much dominated in the caucuses and primaries so far. Now, one school of thought is that Bernie Sanders as the Democratic nominee will lead to a Trump re-election. People are concerned that he's too far left to bring in the centrist and moderate voters needed to defeat Trump. But another school of thought is that, shown as we saw in 2016, we don't really know what's going to happen in politics anymore. It's not as predictable as we once thought. And a lot of people like Bernie because of his authenticity. He's also finding an increasingly high level of support among Latino and Black voters. So, and I want to direct this question first to you, Andrew. What candidate do you believe would be the strongest against Trump? Is Bernie Sanders strong enough if he becomes the nominee?
I think he is. I think he's the only candidate that has a real movement behind him. But I also think that he's the only candidate that Trump wants to run against. I think Trump stands the biggest chance to beat Bernie Sanders, but Bernie Sanders is the only one who can garner enough support to beat the Trump juggernaut, because that's what it is. I mean, he's got hundreds of millions of dollars. He's way ahead in fundraising, and I just don't see the passion behind any other candidate other than Bernie Sanders. If you want to see an Obama-style campaign run where you have passion and all of that kind of fervor that Obama had, the only candidate that I see that's doing that is Bernie Sanders.
And Professor El-Jabaghi, I'd like your insight too on what you think who is the strongest candidate for the Democratic Party.
Well, I think it's interesting that some of the upcoming primaries are open primaries so that Republicans can vote in the Democratic primary if they so choose. And I've just been reading some news about how there's been sort of a strategy. Andrew mentioned that Trump wants to go against Bernie, and to that extent that he can mobilize Republican voters to vote in those open primaries to make that the end result, then that's just feeding into that narrative. In terms of the strongest category or candidate, there's just been 3 contests so far. I don't think that that's any kind of strong evidence that there's a absolute front runner strongest candidate at this point. I think we're going to see a lot of movement in the next month. Yes, he has this ardent following, but I think, as Trump showed, that you never know what might emerge from the back of the pack. Mm-hmm. So I can't give any kind of definitive response of what I think is the strongest, who I think is the strongest candidate at this point.
Well, so South Carolina is Saturday, and Super Tuesday, which is 14 states plus American Samoa, comes up this Tuesday. And one of those states is California, a huge prize for Democrats. And these are some big states with a lot of delegates. The question on everyone's mind is, who's going to come out on top of South Carolina? As Quentin mentioned last week, the South tends to be a good predictor. And what's going to come out of Super Tuesday? And another question I think worth raising is, if Joe Biden doesn't do extraordinarily well, I think, in South Carolina and Super Tuesday, is that the beginning of the end for his campaign? And I'd like to ask you that, Quentin, if you think that's a significator of problems for the Biden campaign.
Well, when we talk about predictability in politics and predictability in politics in the past, an old wise politician said the only predictable things in politics is unpredictability. The Trump candidacy, I think, showed that every month you had in a Republican primary a different front runner, this person or that person. Within Democratic circles, there is no front runner. I mean, that we wouldn't look at there being a front runner absolutely at all, especially this early in the context of primary. And each candidate that still is running has a very vivid emotional following behind them, and it's an energizing thing to the base as a whole. It's kind of like going to a buffet. You got a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and we're kind of happy with our buffet that we got. We're really happy from one end to the other. Some candidates, certain people like a little bit more than others, but most people are kind of a anybody but Trump kind of a kind of Democrat, and the ones they got aren't too extreme one way or the other. So we're looking. We're happy where we at, and I think the South, as it always has been, would be a great predictability. We cannot overlook we have a former vice president in the mix, and this former vice president's strategy was not the first two caucuses or even the third. His strategy is more of a Southern strategy, and you got to look at different ones. How you pronounce her name? Klobuchar. She just spent $5 million. Her strategy is the next caucus coming up. I mean, she just spent more money in this one caucus than she had this entire campaign. So, you know, it really is an open field, and I think the vice president is going to do very well in the South. If he don't, it would be a little bit of a surprise, but you know, we're looking forward to it.
Thank you. And Maddie, I have a question for you. I spoke to you last week about who you'll be voting for. You've mentioned that the Libertarians are going through candidates, and you'll be, you know, deciding on your final nominee. Mm-hmm. What do you think of the Trump presidency?
Personally?
Yes.
Okay, so personally, not the biggest fan just because of who he is as a person, just what he has to say. But policy-wise, I am obviously anti-wall, like that's done. But he has made a couple like tax breaks that I thought were fair. So overall, it's like he wasn't, in my own lifetime, he hasn't been like the worst president, I would say, but he's definitely by far not the best. I preferred Obama. But moving forward, I
love your last statement.
But moving forward, I'm curious to see what's going to happen with this upcoming election, because I think Trump has enough support still to get the 2020 election in the bag.
Just a quick question. You mentioned that you're not a fan of the wall. From a libertarian perspective, where do you find the issue with that?
Oh, well, it's anti-immigration. Libertarians are all about, you know, the liberty to do as you please and to be able to, you know, marry who you want, do what you want, own what you want, and to be able to stop someone from being able to like go out there and travel or like move that's very anti-libertarian. Libertarians and there's kind of a range of opinions on that subject in particular, but typically what people agree with is that people should be able to move to a country if they so choose to, you know.
Thank you. So we've seen a proliferation of Bloomberg ads. You really can't go anywhere without seeing them, and the ads are doing well, but the difference between TV ad Bloomberg and Bloomberg, who appeared at the debate, is pretty vast. He did not do well at the last debate. The general consensus seemed to be that all the other candidates did everything they could to bring up the faults with his candidacy. And it was effective. The question is, if he does not perform well at the debate tonight, is that bad for Mike Bloomberg? Can he survive 2 bad debates? And I'd like to direct this one towards you, Andrew. Do you think that 2 bad debates is going to offset his appeal to centrists and moderates?
I don't think it is. Bloomberg is, I mean, to replace, if the argument's going to be against Trump, that he's a billionaire and he's no good, and look how bad money can make somebody, the Democrats cannot put up Mike Bloomberg. You can't have a guy who comes in and essentially tries to buy an election. I mean, he's already spent hundreds of millions of dollars. If I'm not mistaken, he's already spent more money than Donald Trump spent to win the presidency. And we're not even past South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Now, if that comes to fruition, it'll be interesting to see if people who are so passionate and what I consider a real movement behind Bernie Sanders, I don't see those people voting for somebody like Mike Bloomberg. And how does he write that, you know? And so I see Mike Bloomberg spending a whole lot of money to get nowhere. And after South Carolina, I think a whole realignment's going to happen. You're going to have people like Warren drop out. Klobuchar is probably going to drop out. And you're also going to see Pete Buttigieg is going to have to make some hard decisions. And then the race totally changes.
I want to ask you, Maddie. Actually, let me direct this one first to Jahan. Sanders is counting on his fervent base and a wave of new voters, people who haven't voted before being energized and motivated to do so. Do you think that's going to work? Do you think that can carry him through?
While he was speaking, I wanted to even ask the question to the panel about, is it fair to ask about age? Well, you mentioned, can he invigorate or inspire younger voters or get more of a base? I've got to ask a question. You mentioned Bloomberg, Biden, and I don't know if you guys talked about this already, and Bernie Sanders, is age an issue, and is that going to turn off younger voters? Could you guys speak to that?
Bernie's got his own thing. Bernie is his own little road show, and he excels in younger support for some reason. Very similar. You could draw huge parallels between the Ron Paul movement that happened in the Republican Party and what's going on in the Democrat Party with Bernie Sanders, and I think he's gonna maintain those supports. But I mean, it does, to your point, Bernie Sanders is an older man who just had a heart attack, and he's running for president of the United States. If this was
Bloomberg's the same age.
If we were in any other universe,
Biden.
This would be a huge issue that someone had a heart attack while they were running for president of the United States. But we are where we are.
What about you?
Well,
do you think that keeps younger voters from the table?
well, first of all, when we talk about younger voters, we're talking more about strategy to try to get in before our time is up. In every single presidential, general, statewide election, younger voters are a very small percentage of the election, period, bar none.
But that's unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate, but it's the realistic part of it. It's a thing that people look, they wish, they hope, but the average age of a voter is 65 years old. It's not 55, 45. I'm not even close to it age-wise. So you see in some cases, a lot of cases, candidates even advocate the younger vote because they can spend $5,000 to get 200 young people there. They can spend that same $5,000 and get 5,000 seniors there. So will it make that much of a difference, age? I think the message makes more of a difference. The Democratic campaign is more on emotion, and hopefully, and I pray that young people feel that emotion, they understand the differences, because it's much more than Donald Trump being a millionaire. That's not our thing. We don't have no problem with him being a millionaire.
A billion.
It's a policy thing. Well, one or the other. It's big hands, small hands. It's much more of a strategic thing you're looking at then, and hopefully younger people at some point in our lifetime will participate more in the election cycle. But right now, unfortunately.
And Professor El-Drabaghi, I just wanted to go back to, do you think there's going to be enough new voters, whether they're young people or voters who simply haven't been motivated to register or vote before? Do you think that that's going to be enough to make a meaningful contribution to Sanders' candidacy?
I don't think so for Sanders, no. I know that he truly inspires certain people at kind of in a certain age bracket. But I don't believe Sanders' candidacy is the one that's going to get 18 to 30-year-olds excited and want to go vote.
Who do you think is, or is there someone you think can do it?
Among those candidates, I mean, Buttigieg is, of course, the youngest one, so maybe someone like that who is sort of an optimist, isn't so angry in his tone. Like Sanders is sort of like the anti-Trump, or like the exact like Trump in some ways, in that he has the same sort of angry tone and red-faced delivery, and that I think might turn off some youth voters. They want optimism and excitement and enthusiasm about the future and what it could be, and I don't think Sanders nor Trump kind of speak to that. What could the future be? And so, of the candidates, maybe Buttigieg. I don't know.
Pete Buttigieg to me is like a much less impressive Barack Obama, and it's just like a game that we've already played, a good game. Barack Obama, hands down, unbelievable politician, but Pete is, to me, I just saw a cut on Twitter, somebody took Barack Obama's speeches and Pete Buttigieg, and he's like plagiarizing old classic Obama stump speeches, which are great. They were really good.
I know. I think Donald Trump's wife did one. I remember it was word for word.
But I just don't know if he can break the. Klobuchar came out the other day and in the debate and said, "Oh God, I wish we could all be as perfect as you, Pete." And I just wonder if that sort of brand of super polished politician hasn't. That ship has sailed.
Hasn't run its course if people aren't
What
hired.
you call super polished politician, most people in the average world would call just being a professional
Or a
with his
statesman.
craft. Or a statesman. I think that statesman or being presidential. We kind of got lost in the sense of people just doing it and saying, I shouldn't say people, but our current president, and Lord God bless his little polar heart, doing some of the most craziest things, and we lose some of that presidentialness of that office. But that is what it is. There's voters who like that. There's voters who appreciate it. But everyone on the Democratic side is running strong, hard. They got young support. With that young support translating to young votes, that just depends on what young people almost are doing during that time frame. But it does translate a lot of times to young feet on the ground. And that energy is really deep inside the Democratic Party, and we're happy about that. We appreciate it. And we feel that's going to carry us not just to November, but to the win, no matter who is the actual candidate over the current one we have in office.
Well, thank you all so much for your time. Tonight is another Democratic debate. This Saturday is the South Carolina primary, and Super Tuesday coming in with 14 states. A huge thanks to all of our panelists. Let's toss it back to Frankie and C.
Another huge thanks to Kat and our panelists. When we come back, Herndon will let you in on all of what happened with homecoming weekend with the games. Stay tuned.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Here's to the things that can keep us safe. Those we use all the time with hardly a thought. Those that are silently standing by to save our lives. And now, those that we carry with us everywhere we go. Many mobile devices will now bring you wireless emergency alerts, real-time information directly from local sources you know and trust. With the unique sound and vibration, you'll be in the know wherever you are.
When you look at the number of disasters in the U.S., chances are every area will deal with some kind of emergency in the next decade. And between school, sports, and social lives, chances are you won't be with your kids when it happens. Will they know what to do? Ready.gov/kids has the educational tools and information to make the conversation easy. When the time comes, chances are they'll feel prepared, not scared. So talk with your family today.
Welcome back. Let's toss it over to Herndon to see what he has for us.
Welcome back to GC360 Sports. I'm Herndon Lee. This past weekend was homecoming weekend, and a thrilling end to the men's basketball game this Saturday, but a disappointment for the women's against North Georgia. The women's game tipped off at 3:30 and stayed close in the first half, but in the third quarter, the Nighthawks went on a 15-4 run against the Bobcats. The final score was North Georgia 59, Georgia College 43. The men's tipped off against their conference rivals at 5:30, and it was a nail-biter all the way to the end. The Bobcats led North Georgia by 1 point at halftime, 38-37. And at the end of regulation, it was all tied up at 69 apiece. With just over 5 seconds left in overtime, Jordan Thomas who hails from Conyards, took a shot to remember. Nick Brooks, a fan who attended the game, captured the last few seconds of the game. Let's take a look. The overtime win put the Bobcats' season record at 12-14 and 9-9 in the conference. The men's and women's basketball team will host Lander this Wednesday. Turning to basketball, last weekend the rain washed out this past weekend's series against Claflin. Those games will now be played in May. The Bobcats will be on the road for the next few weeks. They play at Mount Olive this Wednesday, and then they will travel to North Georgia after that to USC Aiken. The baseball team isn't back home until Friday, March 13th, when they take on UNC Pembroke for the first 3 games. That's it for sports. Let's toss it back over to Frankie and C.
Thank you, Hernan. Stay tuned after the break to get your 3-day forecast from everyone's favorite weather woman, Gabrielle.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back to your weather forecast. I'm Gabrielle Duchateau. What luck we had. No rain during homecoming weekend. Might have been chilly, but I don't think anybody cared. It was nice to leave the house without an umbrella over my head. It didn't last long. The weather went straight back to old habits. Rain on Monday, rain on Tuesday. But I'm about to deliver a good forecast that should make everyone happy. Wednesday is going to be a partly cloudy day, but the chance of rain is only 20%. Let's be happy with what we're given. It's still going to be pretty chilly, a high of 63 degrees and a low of 35 degrees. Humidity will be at 70%. The best part of this forecast is that Thursday is looking like to be a sunny day. We haven't had many of those lately. Even though the sun will be shining, it will be colder than Wednesday. The high will be 51 degrees and the low will drop to 31. Chance of rain is 0%. Hooray! And humidity will be lower than what we've had lately at 49%. Looking ahead to this weekend, I think everyone will be pleased with the forecast. So tune in on Thursday to see your weekend weather forecast. That's it for me. Let's throw it back to the desk.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
cats take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Welcome back. This week, we are going to talk about something that our generation might just be overlooking, TikTok.
So TikTok is a video sharing social networking service owned by ByteDance, which is a Beijing-based company. It's used to create short lip-sync, comedy, and talent videos.
The app was launched in 2017, but has become increasingly popular in America this past year. TikTok currently has over 500 million active users worldwide, which is bizarre because Vine only had 200 million at its peak.
So as a lot of you know, Vine closed down in 2016, and it's kind of looking like TikTok could be following in its footsteps. But here's the catch. There might be more to TikTok than what meets the eye. This Chinese app was shut down completely for 2 weeks in India, temporarily shutting off literally 600 million viewers.
The app was banned after an Indian court ruled that it could expose children to sexual predators and cyberbullying. In America, TikTok has become an increasingly more of a concern for being a threat to our national security.
So lawmakers have taken the time to look into TikTok and the company that runs it. They're concerned about where the information is from the users is going.
Late last week, lawmakers actually banned TSA agents from using TikTok to make public service announcements and other videos for the official TSA social media pages.
Okay, so with all of this being said, do you think TikTok is at risk of getting banned for good?
I think it's really situational. It depends on like what content is being produced and like what people are trying to crack down on the laws for it.
Yeah, and I think it's also like it said that they were kind of concerned about cyberbullying, pornographic content, and I think there's some of those things that it's easy to buckle down on. Yeah. But also like just complex, you know, people will post things on social media with like profanity. And it's like, well, if you have a little 5-year-old girl and she's got a TikTok and she's listening to these songs, it's like you can't really censor that because there are so many people of like our age that, you know, listen to that kind of music, but it's like you never really know how old your audience is.
That's really true. So do you think there's any like practical ways to crack down on the content, or do you think the internet can get out of hand no matter what?
I mean, I think people can do the best that they can, and I think our internet security has come a long way. You know, I think people can do a lot to censor things, and usually if you like flag something or it gets a couple of notifications that it's inappropriate, I feel like they're pretty good at taking posts down like that. That being said, I think the internet's whack. It can be crazy no matter what. Like, you can type Barbie and like some crazy stuff will come up. So, you know, I think it's just like you have to be careful no matter what. Even though there is censorship, you know, you still have to understand like what you're looking at, where you're at. All right, well, thanks for talking to me about it. That's all today for GC360. Join us Thursday for our next show where we continue to talk about Netflix's original show, The Circle. I'm C. Hearn.
And I'm Frankie Mastras. When we're not on air, we keep you up to date on our social media pages, facebook.com/GC360, at GC360 News on Twitter and Instagram, and on our YouTube page, youtube.com/GC360 News.
Always available to you, GC360, where news and entertainment comes full circle.